Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you're listening to The Sounds of Film. And I'm really excited to have on the phone with me right now a true legend, Grandmaster Caz. He's the star of the legendary hip-hop film Wild Style. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary of that movie, and he's had many CDs as a solo artist and also with Cold Crush Brothers and others. And Grandmaster, thank you so much for joining us today on The Sounds of Film.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Man, a true legend. Let's start with the film because that's the occasion that we're talking. Then we'll talk about some other stuff if you have a few moments. 30 years ago, Wild Style, the idea came up. I just spoke to Charlie Ahern, the director, and he was very fond of your work and your relationship. And tell me a little bit from your point of view how you got involved with this movie.
Well, from Charlie. Charlie came around checking out the hip-hop scene early on, 80, 81. And to see this, short little white guy from who knows where, just around, the hood, so to speak, and in hip-hop parties was like, hey, you know what I mean? But he was really a genuine kind of guy, and he had a real interest in the culture, and he wanted to document it. So, I mean, we were all open to the opportunity of having this thing, put on film. It kind of validated it to a certain degree to us, that people outside of the culture had an interest in it and thought that it was important.
Can you explain just a little bit for those of us that don't remember the exact time frame? Where were you exactly in terms of your career before this movie came about?
Well, I was in the Bronx. I was part of a group known as the Cold Crush Brothers, and we were pretty much one of the premier groups at the time, along with the Fantastic Five, who are our rivals in the film and in real life, so that's where we were, pretty much vying for the top spot, so to speak, in hip-hop in New York, because hip-hop hadn't really reached that far outside of the tri-state area yet. So it was about, dominating and who was number one in the city. Some guys had gotten record deals prior to that and were like on the road, so that kind of left it open to us in the Fantastic Five to kind of go for it. So it was reflected in the film, kind of it mirrored, true life the way it was.
How much influence did you have besides just being in the movie in terms of like what was included in the movie and the story and so forth?
Well, I mean, Charlie pretty much had everything, laid out. I mean, he kind of looked at what we were doing and kind of, kind of directed it, so to speak. I mean, it wasn't really scripted a lot, I had more than just what you saw on the screen involvement in the film, I kind of helped to direct the scene, helped, people with lines, in our scenes. I also did the soundtrack, the theme, the Wild Style theme.
Yeah, I want to talk about that soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks, and I've just been playing it a lot to prepare for the interview and really enjoying it almost more many years later. Tell me a little bit about the process. Charlie was talking about how with the soundtrack, one of the things he did, which he said was smart, in hindsight, was that there was no sampling or anything like that on these cuts. But you were involved in the music, and there were some others. Tell me a little bit about the whole soundtrack for Wild Style.
Well, actually, the soundtrack was pretty much done. If you listen to the Wild Style soundtrack, it's very kind of raw and very kind of, how can I say, kind of grassroots produced. It's not like a lot of overproduction or anything on it. It's kind of raw. I guess they did that on purpose to try to capture the feel of this kind of new movement. That was more Freddie and Chris Stein. By the time we heard it, we just heard the tracks. So we put our lyrics or different things to different tracks. The Down by Law track was the most funky one. So that's the one everybody used for live performance.
Yeah.
But the Wild Style theme, that was, pretty much done, and I kind of maneuvered it the way that I needed it to for the rap, You know what I mean? Me and Charlie Charlie helped out, you know, with some ideas and the direction that he wanted it to go in, and we made it happen.
A lot of people today, you know, look back and at those days and call it old school or whatever. But I love the sound of the soundtrack. You know, the basic beats and the rhymes and you know, the Cold Crush Brothers and the MCs going back and forth. Can you talk a little bit about how the style of rap was a little bit different, at least the way it was captured in this soundtrack in that time period than some of the rap today?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the fact that there's groups.
Yeah,
there's groups. You don't see too many hip hop groups, and if there are, they're not groups. They're like collectives. You know what I mean? Of different solo MCs that are all down in the same crew, but they don't rap together as one. They're not, you know, harmonious, they're melodic. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest difference in the style of rap from then until now. Secondly, I mean, it was more for the audience. You know what I mean? It was more about party, have fun, throw your hands in the air, so-and-so's in the house, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. It was more social than like the MC just having his own agenda. He already knows and he's just talking. You know, he doesn't. I think we had more of a connect, you know, with the audience.
Right.
I think it's more because we had to be performers. We had to be entertaining, you know, to capture, you know, people's attention. You know, we weren't in a magazine. We weren't on the radio. We didn't have that kind of instant appeal that, okay, we heard his song, so as soon as, you know, we're going to scream at a show.
Well, one of the reasons
Make them scream every night, every time we went out.
One of the things that's so important about this movie is that it really captures that whole Bronx scene. And I mean, it's not rapping at coliseums, it's rapping in the park and in the clubs and on the basketball court. How real was all that? Was that really what it was like?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, except for the basketball court.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, who stops playing basketball and starts rapping back and forth? That was more of like a take on the West Side Story kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, with the two gangs, you know what I mean, rival gangs, and they danced instead of stabbing each other. You know what I mean? That's kind of the theme of dancing and part of hip hop and b-boying. I ain't gonna say breakdancing, but b-boying. You know what I mean? Guys, you dance it out. You know what I mean? You might have the same kind of aggression where somebody else might fight or you know, use violence. We dancing this out. You're a b-boy, I'm a b-boy. Let's go.
We're speaking with the legendary Grandmaster Caz, part of Cold Crush Brothers, a solo artist and the star of Wild Style, 30th anniversary. Can you believe it's been 30 years?
Yeah, I can believe it. Can I believe that I'm still here? No, that's kind of hard to believe. I'm still trying to get a grasp on that. But the film, I'm sure that I mean, it's a testament to you know, the importance of the film and the, you know, the authenticity of the film. I mean, you captured hip hop at an early age where, you know, everything afterward is kind of trying to sweep that age under a rug or something. You know what I mean? This Wild Style is a testament to that era of hip hop. You know, that first generation of hip hop, that feeling when hip hop was in the park, you know, instead of the studio. You know?
One of the things that I've heard you say in other interviews that you're proud of is that in the beginning, you did it all. You DJ'd, you MC'd, you danced, you did graffiti, and that's what this movie's all about. The culture really has changed a little bit. It used to be more of those things. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's the commercialism of the element in hip-hop that was the most marketable. I mean, you can't package any other elements in hip-hop like you can rap, and like the way they did. So that's why rap became an industry unto itself. But hip-hop as a culture, rap is just a part of it. Okay, and you can't really have something hip-hop that's just a part of hip-hop and not include the rest of the elements. You know what I mean? All these things were one with us. All these things came together to make what hip-hop is. So hip-hop is not just for rappers. It's hip-hop is b-boys. Hip-hop is graffiti. Hip-hop is DJs, you know? So that definitely exemplifies it, but that's the main difference. One of the biggest difference between now and then. Rap is just rap now.
Right.
And when you look for any other semblance of hip-hop in it, you rarely see it. And as time goes on, you see less and less. You know, I mean, even in the 90s, you saw, you know, Missy Elliott had B-boys in her videos, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as, you know, close as, like, you know, Erykah Badu, she sing, but she had B-boys in her videos. She had Kool Herc driving a bus in her video. You know what I mean? They're still in touch with hip-hop as what hip-hop is, but not enough people.
You know, one of the things that's a little bit different about hip-hop versus like rock music or whatever is that for many, many years in rock they would pay great tribute to the people that started it all. And it seems that as someone ages in rock, they get even bigger and bigger audiences like the Rolling Stones and the Who and so forth. And for a while it seemed like hip-hop music wasn't paying proper attention to the people like yourself who started it all, the real originators, the creators. And I'm wondering, is that starting to change? And why do you think there is a difference between like the way people pay tribute in rock versus hip-hop?
Well, I mean, country music is the same thing. They do the same thing in country music. I mean, you know, any of these guys can still go out and tour, do concerts, you know, Willie Nelson, I mean, all these guys, Conway Twitty, they're like heroes. I think hip-hop is that way because, you know, it's like a sub-genre, you know what I mean? As far as commercially, I mean, hip-hop really hasn't really been accepted as an art form. You know, as rap music is something that they had to, it's so popular, we gotta put it up. We gotta, you know what I mean? But it's like, you know, nobody wants hip-hop in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
No true rock and roller, okay, wants to see hip-hop in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, okay? No, I mean, they were, oh, man, hip-hop won an Oscar.
Right. Well,
they winning Grammys for this shit. I mean, excuse me, you know, for this stuff. So, I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, nobody really, in the beginning, nobody wanted to be bothered with hip-hop. They thought it was a fad. They thought it was like a cold that we caught that we would eventually get rid of. You know, like, oh, they're just sick. They'll be okay. You know what I mean? They thought the same thing about rock and roll.
Yeah.
And look at rock and roll.
When did you know that this was going to last, that this was going to grow?
You know what? Kind of the Run DMC era really just, you know, gave this whole thing, I mean, a monumental step forward. And I was like, this is it. I mean, it's here to stay. Now, it also kind of signaled the end of our era.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the problem is, I mean, the early cats, we are still here physically. We're still viable. We still, you know, work and everything. But when hip-hop became part of mainstream doesn't have the same ethics as hip-hop does. So,
what do you mean by that?
Out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. What do you mean by the ethics?
In the business or in the industry, you know what I mean? In the culture of hip-hop, we are just as you know, big or important, or you know what I mean, as we were back then, because this is our culture.
Right. You know, you certainly hear so many artists paying tribute to you. One of the things that I'm sure you're asked about a million times, so I have to bring it up, is your involvement in one of hip-hop's first huge tracks, Rapper's Delight. I know it's a little bit of a sore subject, but why don't you tell our listeners who maybe don't know the story about your involvement in a song that's usually attributed to the Sugar Hill Gang?
Well, I mean, I'm hip-hop's first ghostwriter, unwittingly. Okay, because I wrote all the Big Bang Hank's lyrics for Rapper's Delight, and I never received writer's credit or a dime, you know, as far as, you know, publishing or royalties or anything like that. I never received a coin connected with Rappers Delight. And so that's like a big, that's not what I want to go down in history as, but that's kind of the big thing that everybody, it kind of connects me to not only the beginning of rap, but, you know what I mean?
The first big commercial.
Before that, the first commercial hit. You know what I mean? It's like when you look at my genealogy in hip hop, I'm connected to so many different things from the beginning on up to today. It's really cool to be able to say that too. And I'm surprised sometimes because I be like, people tell me like, yo, if it wasn't for you, this and this and that, and I wasn't doing something, and now I'm like, oh wow, to see that you had that kind of effect on so many people, it's like mind blowing sometimes.
It really is amazing. Is there one thing when you look back at your long career that you're most proud of?
One thing, I think my status and the way other people recognize me for my, for my talent. You know what I mean? I rarely get people might can say a lot of things about Grandmaster Caz, but you've never heard nobody say that I'm not one of the best people that ever did this.
Yeah.
Okay? And the fact that people recognize that, I'm humbled by that. And you know what I mean? I think that's the thing because that's what I vied for the most. That's what I set out to do. That we didn't vie for riches and all that. We never knew money would be involved in this on that level. We just wanted to be the best at what we did, be it a graph writer or be it a DJ or be it a b-boy. We just wanted to be the best one, and that's all I wanted to do: be the best at what I did.
And you did it. Congratulations.
Thanks. If I knew it was that easy, I'd have wished for riches.
On a similar subject, you were part of another movie, because we're on the Sounds of Film, and I want to talk about some other film you appeared in, and that is Ice-T's documentary, Something from Nothing, The Art of Rap. And this is a movie where so many famous people, including yourself, came together to explain the process of how they do what they do. How'd you get involved in this movie, and what was the experience like?
Well, I was approached by Ice-T. He was a good friend of mine. We met back in 1982 before anybody knew who Ice-T was. He was out in L.A., doing local clubs and stuff, and we got cool, and we've been tight ever since. But he told me that he was working on this, this film about, the art of rap, like what it takes to be an MC, and he wanted to bring the cameras by the house, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, come on, let's do it. That's how we get down. So, they came by with the cameras, set up and whatever, and then he was telling the producer, like, yo, this guy Caz, you should see his rhyme book. This guy writes in perfect penmanship, every rhyme, every line, and I pulled out some of my books. They were like, you should, you should make a book out of your rhymes and stuff, you know what I mean? Could you write a rhyme like right now? I said, yeah. So, all those things came into play during the film, and that's why they spent so much time on me. I got a lot of play in that film,
right?
Simply because, to the producers, it was the most interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And it didn't hurt, my little performance. My rhymes, they still talking about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I go out, people still, that joint you said in the art of rap, that was crazy.
It's amazing. Like, did you ever think that something like a film like this would come around so many years later, and YouTube clips and things like that? There's so many different places where people,
and I really commend Ice on it, man, because usually when you look, like I said, rap has been so commercialized in the last 30 years that that's all they look at, and it hasn't really grown as far as content. It's kind of diminished a lot, because just the way things are right now. But for a film to kind of concentrate not on the bling, not on the the negative, not on the guys going to jail or getting shot or anything like that, but the art of this thing to show that there is some artistry involved in this thing. Okay? Everybody ain't just going off the top of the dome.
Well, Grandmaster Caz, I mean, I have to say, it's really pretty remarkable. You were there at the beginning, and Wild Style now is considered, I mean, I guess it was in the beginning, an art film. You know, it's shown in museums, and it's considered an important cultural milestone. And now you're in this documentary that I believe played at Sundance and is studying the art of rap. So, you know, even though you described the period where you were starting out as, you know, the fun music and the party tunes and everything, it's a serious art form, and it's amazing that you've been involved in 2 films that really do emphasize the art part of it. It's great.
Well, I guess so. I guess so. And I think about it like I was in like the first movie about hip hop and the last one.
Yeah.
And there's 2 more documentaries out right now. One called "I Want My Name Back." That's about the Sugar Hill Gang. Well, not the Sugar Hill Gang, but Wonder Mike and Master G of the original Sugar Hill Gang and their struggle with Sugar Hill Records to maintain their name.
Wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's called "I Want My Name Back." So that's out now, and another doc called "Sample This," which is about the incredible bongo band.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I was a part of that as well.
So you're all over the place. Grandmaster Caz, I mean, a true legend, and I love the music. Just really quickly before we go, tell me about Cold Crush Brothers, like how it started, and why it ended, and are you still in contact with any of the guys?
All right, when it started, actually, 77, 78, Cold Crush actually started, but the lineup that the world knows, end of 79, 80. And Tony Tone pretty much started the group. He used to be the equipment guy for the Brothers Disco, DJ Breakout Baron and the Funky Four.
Yeah.
And at some point, Tony left to start his own group. He met Charlie Chase, who was, you know, Puerto Rican DJ in the Bronx that played hip-hop. So he was like, yo, let me team up with this guy, and then they wanted to put a group around him. So they started, you know, grabbing people here, there, till it came to me. And then Charlie wanted me to kind of captain the MCs. And after a while of just doing my own thing and bouncing around here to there, I agreed, you know, as long as he would put JDL down too.
Right.
And so, you know, he finally relented, and then we joined the Cold Crush as we know it today.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Are you still in contact with everybody, or?
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, everybody's doing their own thing, you know what I mean?
People would love to see you together again.
Well, we just performed at the Wild Style anniversary.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So we were all there. We all pretty much in contact, you know what I mean? It's a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we all grown up, and everybody has their own families and agendas, but, you know, we always going to stay in touch and be Cold Crush, you know what I mean?
Well, before we go, is there anything else you're working on right now that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, well, I'm working on an album right now, me and Diamond D.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so I'm trying to put some things together. I want to have an album out, you know what I mean, for next summer.
Next summer, that is?
Yeah, that's my goal.
And any certain style or any hints about what it might sound like?
No, not really. I can't really tell you. I just, you know...
Okay.
I just wanted to be a surprise. Once I get a lock on it, if I'm like a little past halfway through, then I'll start, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the one thing that everyone knows about you that follows your career is that you supposedly have all these notebooks of rhymes and stuff like that. When you're doing a new album, is it all new material, or do you reach back into the books?
No, nothing. No, this is all going to be new material. A lot of stuff I've never used, I've never done, but you know what I mean? To the writer, I mean, it's old, it's dated, you know what I mean? To you, it's brand new because you never heard it.
Right, but all the references are dated, or?
Yeah, well, you know, you can tell, just different terms. Now, I like to think that anything I write or have written, you know, is just timeless. I could do it at any time, and depend on the energy I put in it, it's going to work anywhere. But me doing an album at 53, In 2014,
Yeah.
I wanted to be all new. I wanted to be all fresh. I wanted to be all me. So this is like me starting from right here and doing an album.
And when you do a new album, what do you have as your ultimate goal for it? I mean, do you have it in terms of in your mind that this is going to be for my core audience, or is there always the possibility you think that this thing could just blow up and be a huge success?
Well, you know what? I'm really not. I'm not trying to be Kanye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm pretty raw. I'm pretty hip hop, and I'm pretty much going to stay that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hire no R&B singers, so you ain't got to worry about that. Okay, I'm making a hip hop album. I'll just say that I'm making a hip hop album.
Well, that's great because that's what we really need at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Grandmaster Caz, thank you so much for coming on the Sounds of Film. I recommend everyone check out Wild Style 30th Anniversary if you haven't seen it already, and stay tuned for Grandmaster's new album coming out in about a year or so. Again, thank you so much. We're huge fans of you here on the Sounds of Film, and good luck with all your future projects.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Okay, good night.
Peace.